Have you ever found yourself holding on to things that no longer contribute positively to your life? As we grow older, our perspective on life changes in ways we didn't expect. What once seemed essential, whether it was seeking validation from others, trying to keep up with the latest trends, or constantly filling our days with activity, gradually loses its significance. This shift is not just a matter of aging. It's about gaining a deeper sense of clarity. You begin to see through the clutter of what used to matter and start realizing that some things simply don't deserve your energy or time anymore. Reaching the age of 60 often brings with it a profound clarity, a realization that life has become less about accumulating possessions, achievements, and validation, and more about nurturing your inner peace, embracing self-love, and prioritizing joy. After all, the best years of your life should be spent enjoying what truly matters, rather than carrying the weight of past expectations, toxic relationships, and societal pressures. In today's video, we're going to explore 6 things that become unnecessary after reaching the age of 60. Some of them might surprise you, while others could already be things you've started to let go of, or perhaps you've never needed them at all. Either way, this video will shed light on how releasing these burdens can transform your life in ways you might not have imagined. By recognizing what no longer adds value to your life, you'll free up space, mentally, emotionally, and even physically, to focus on what truly matters to you. This liberation opens up time, energy, and peace of mind, so you can invest them into relationships, experiences, and practices that bring joy and fulfillment. The journey to letting go may not always be easy, but it's a vital step toward creating a life that feels lighter, freer, and far more meaningful. Stick with us until the end, because you might discover that releasing these 6 things could change your life in ways you never expected. And once you make the decision to let go, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. Now let's dive in. Keeping up with trends, there was a time, not so long ago, when staying on top of the latest trends felt like a necessary part of life. Whether it was fashion, technology, or lifestyle choices, there was an invisible pressure to keep up, to be in the know, and to always be ahead of the curve. Every season brought new gadgets, clothing styles, and fads that promised to make us look, feel, or live better. But as you approach the age of 60, something profound happens. You begin to realize that chasing trends is not only exhausting, but also completely unnecessary. In fact, most trends are designed to come and go, and trying to keep up with them is often more stressful than fulfilling. What's in fashion today will likely be forgotten tomorrow, and the effort required to stay updated on every new trend becomes an overwhelming task. Take fashion, for example. In your younger years, you might have cared about fitting in with the latest styles, obsessing over what was in and what was out. But now, with years of experience under your belt, you know what works for you. You've developed a sense of style that's uniquely yours, a wardrobe that's not about impressing others, but about comfort, confidence, and expressing your true self. You're not concerned about whether your clothes are in season anymore. You're concerned about what makes you feel good. Your style has become timeless because it reflects who you are, not the ever-changing whims of the fashion industry. The same principle applies to technology. Every year, new gadgets hit the market. Faster phones, smarter watches, and new apps that promise to enhance your life. But do you truly need the latest device, especially if your current one works just fine? After 60, you come to understand that technology should be a tool to simplify your life, not a source of constant stress. You don't need to learn every new update, download every trending app, or replace your perfectly functioning devices just because something newer has come along. The need to keep up with the latest tech trends starts to feel like a burden you no longer want to carry. And let's not forget the lifestyle trends, the ever-changing diet fads, the latest workout regimens, and the social media challenges. One year, it's all about low-fat foods. The next, it's about high-protein diets. One moment, walking is praised as the ultimate exercise. The next, everyone is focused on high-intensity interval training. But after 60, you've learned that what works for others doesn't always work for you. You know your body, your habits, and what makes you feel good. You've found the routines, foods, and practices that nourish your mind and body. You no longer need someone else's definition of the best way to live. Letting go of the need to keep up with trends, whether they're in fashion, technology, or lifestyle, is one of the most freeing things you can do. It allows you to focus on what matters most, what brings you peace, joy, and fulfillment. You no longer need to chase what's new. The best things in life don't go out of style, and by embracing this mindset, you can enjoy your life without the constant pressure to keep up, seeking everyone's approval for much of your life. You may have felt an unspoken, almost instinctual need to seek the approval of others. Whether it was family, friends, coworkers, or society in general, there was always this invisible pressure to meet expectations, to conform, to say the right things, and to avoid disappointing anyone. In fact, you might have found yourself making decisions based on what others thought was best for you, sometimes at the expense of your own happiness. Think back to some of the choices you've made. Perhaps you chose a career path that seemed more respectable than one you were truly passionate about, simply because others would approve of it. Or maybe you agreed to social engagements you weren't excited about, simply to avoid being seen as rude or antisocial. There were times you may have held back from pursuing your true passions or dreams out of fear of judgment. You convinced yourself it was the right thing to do because, after all, what would others think? But once you reach the age of 60, something shifts within you. You begin to understand that no matter how much effort you pour into pleasing others, you'll never be able to meet everyone's expectations. There will always be someone who disagrees, someone who criticizes, and someone who believes you should be doing things differently. And that realization, while powerful, can also be incredibly freeing. Now, instead of constantly seeking external validation, you shift your focus inward. You start to ask yourself, why am I still trying so hard to gain approval from people whose opinions don't truly define me? It's in this question that true liberation begins. You no longer feel the need to mold yourself into a version of yourself that fits into someone else's idea of who you should be. Instead, you embrace your true self with all its flaws and quirks, and you realize that you deserve to live life on your own terms. Here's the beautiful part. When you stop seeking approval, you open the door to something even more valuable. Self-respect. You begin making decisions because they feel right for you, not because they'll earn someone else's praise. You surround yourself with people who love and accept you for who you truly are, not those who only approve of you when you meet their specific standards. You stop living to satisfy others and start living to satisfy yourself. And in doing so, you gain the most priceless gift of all, inner peace. The pressure to constantly please others is exhausting. And by releasing it, you not only gain self-respect, but also the freedom to fully embrace who you are. If you've spent decades worrying about what others think, it's time to let that burden go. You don't need anyone's permission to live your life on your own terms. The people who truly matter in your life will support you no matter what. And the rest? Their opinions were never worth your energy in the first place. By now, if you're still watching and feeling these insights resonate with you, take a moment to comment number 2 below to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend doing so and turning on a notification bell so you never miss any of our videos. Your support helps us continue to create content that informs and inspires, and we truly appreciate it. Now, let's move on to the next part. Overloading your schedule for most of your life. You've probably been conditioned to think that busyness equates to productivity, importance, or success. You may have filled your schedule with endless commitments, obligations, and responsibilities, believing that the more you did, the more valuable you were. But as you approach your 60s, something shifts in your perspective. You start to realize that busyness doesn't always equal happiness, and sometimes being constantly on the go can leave you feeling more drained than fulfilled. Reflect for a moment on all the years when you might have said yes to things you didn't really want to do, simply because you didn't want to disappoint anyone or felt guilty for turning someone down. Perhaps you said yes to every social engagement, every request for favors, or every work obligation that came your way. You wore the badge of busyness like a badge of honor, convincing yourself that a packed schedule meant you were important and contributing. But now, as you get older, you begin to understand the importance of quality over quantity. You realize that every minute you spend on something that doesn't truly bring you joy or fulfillment is a minute you're taking away from something that could truly enrich your life. You don't need to prove your worth by filling every moment of your day with obligations. After 60, you don't have to keep up with that fast-paced, nonstop lifestyle anymore. Slowing down is not a sign of laziness. Rather, it's a sign of wisdom. It's the wisdom that tells you that your time is valuable and that it's best spent on things that matter. The things that bring you peace, joy, and fulfillment. No longer do you need to rush from one task to the next, trying to fill your days with as much activity as possible. You have learned the power of intentional living, and now you're choosing to spend your time in ways that feel meaningful. Choosing to say no to things that drain you isn't about being selfish. It's about honoring your own needs and well-being. You stop overloading your schedule with unnecessary commitments, and instead, you begin to embrace more time for yourself. Whether it's reading a book, enjoying a quiet cup of coffee in the morning, or taking a leisurely walk in nature, you start to savor the small, quiet moments that make life so rich and meaningful. When you stop overloading your schedule, you discover that life doesn't have to be a race. Instead, it becomes a journey, one where you can fully experience and appreciate each moment. Your days are no longer defined by what you have to do, but by what you want to do. And this shift brings with it a sense of freedom and satisfaction that makes life feel more fulfilling than ever before. Holding on to toxic relationships as you grow older, your perspective on relationships undergoes a significant transformation. When you were younger, you may have felt obligated to keep certain people in your life simply because of history, guilt, or a sense of duty. Perhaps you endured toxic friendships, difficult family dynamics, or draining acquaintances because you thought it was the right thing to do. You told yourself that these people were part of your life, and you had to keep them there, no matter how much they drained you emotionally or mentally. But as you reach the age of 60, you begin to recognize something incredibly important. Not every relationship is worth holding on to. Life is too short, and your time, energy, and peace are far too valuable to waste on people who consistently bring negativity into your life. Whether it's a so-called friend who only reaches out when they need something, a family member who constantly criticizes you, or an old acquaintance who drains your energy with constant complaints and negativity, you begin to see that you don't have to tolerate toxic relationships anymore. By this stage in life, you understand that relationships should bring joy, support, and positivity, not stress and emotional turmoil. And if someone in your life is making you feel guilty, anxious, or unappreciated, it's time to reevaluate their place in your world. You don't have to keep them around just because of your history together. You have earned the right to choose peace over conflict and calm over chaos. Letting go of toxic relationships isn't about holding on to anger or resentment. It's about choosing to surround yourself with people who lift you up and contribute to your well-being. When you let go of those who drag you down, you make space for those who will support and celebrate you for who you truly are. It's about choosing quality over quantity when it comes to relationships, focusing on deep, meaningful connections rather than the number of people in your social circle. You might find that some people don't understand your decision to step away from toxic relationships, and they might even try to make you feel guilty. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing happiness and peace. Your mental and emotional well-being should always come first. By letting go of the wrong people, you make space for the right ones. Those who will help you create a life filled with love, support, and joy. Worrying about the future when we're younger, we often feel like the future is something we need to constantly prepare for, plan for, and anticipate. We worry about everything from career goals to financial stability, health, relationships, and even the possibility of failure. There's always a sense of urgency to achieve things as quickly as possible because we're taught that if we don't plan ahead and succeed in life, we might fall behind. The truth is, worrying about the future often creates unnecessary stress. While it's essential to plan and set goals, obsessing over what's to come only drains the joy from the present moment. You've probably spent years of your life obsessing over things you couldn't control. What would happen with your career, how you would afford retirement, what your relationships would look like in the future. You might have found yourself lying awake at night, thinking about all the what-ifs. But at 60, you've learned a powerful lesson. The future is uncertain, and no amount of worrying will change what happens. All you can control is the present moment. You've come to understand that worrying about the future is like carrying a heavy backpack full of rocks. It's exhausting and doesn't help you move forward. Instead of being anxious about what could happen down the road, you start to focus on what you can do right now to improve your life. You realize that you can't predict every outcome, and that's okay. Life is filled with twists and turns, and it's better to approach it with a sense of curiosity and flexibility rather than rigid fear. At 60, you've learned to trust yourself and the decisions you've made up until this point. You've learned that you have the ability to handle whatever life throws your way, even if it doesn't go as planned. Worrying about the future only prevents you from fully experiencing the present and appreciating all that you've accomplished. And you've come to understand that sometimes the best thing you can do for your future is to let go of the pressure to control every aspect of it. Instead, you begin living with a sense of peace and contentment in the present, while still planning for what's ahead, but without letting it consume your thoughts. You've figured out that when you stop worrying about things you can't control, you free up mental and emotional space to focus on what truly matters. And when you do think about the future, you focus on the things that bring you joy: traveling, spending time with loved ones, exploring new hobbies, or simply enjoying life's small pleasures. You know that whatever happens in the future, you will be okay because you've already built a life filled with strength, resilience, and wisdom. Comparing yourself to others in your younger years, it was easy to fall into the trap of comparison. You looked at others, friends, family, colleagues, or even strangers, and measured yourself against them. You compared your achievements, your appearance, your lifestyle, your relationships, and even your happiness. Society often bombards us with images of success, leading us to believe that we must meet certain standards to be good enough. You may have spent much of your life feeling inferior to others, questioning why they seem to have it all together while you struggle with your own challenges. It's easy to get caught in this cycle of comparison, but it's important to recognize that it's both unproductive and unhealthy. At 60, you've learned a valuable lesson. Comparing yourself to others is an exercise in frustration. It's an unfair standard because no one else has walked in your shoes, experienced your unique journey, or faced the same obstacles. Everyone's path is different, and what looks like success on the outside may not always tell the full story. As you get older, you begin to understand that true fulfillment doesn't come from meeting society's standards or comparing yourself to those around you. It comes from embracing your own path and finding contentment with who you are and where you are in life. You realize that the only person you need to compete with is the version of yourself you were yesterday, not the people around you. You start to celebrate your own successes, big and small, and recognize that your value isn't determined by what others achieve. The wisdom gained over the years helps you see that comparison only steals your joy and peace. Instead of measuring yourself against others, you now measure your progress based on your own goals, values, and the personal growth you've experienced. You might have once looked at someone's perfectly curated life and felt inadequate, but now you understand that no one's life is as perfect as it appears on the surface. We all have our own struggles, and we all face our own challenges. By shifting your focus away from others and towards your own journey, you begin to find peace and fulfillment. You stop worrying about how you measure up to others, and you start embracing your own unique story. It's easy to look back at the past and dwell on what could have been: missed opportunities, mistakes you made, relationships you lost, or paths you didn't take. We've all experienced moments of regret, and sometimes those moments can feel like a weight that holds us back from moving forward. You may have spent years looking at your past and wishing you had made different choices, or wondering what might have happened if you had taken a different route. But here's the truth. Regret is a powerful emotion, but it's also one that you no longer need to carry as you enter your 60s. You realize that while the past shaped who you are, it doesn't define you. You've come to understand that every mistake and setback was a part of your personal growth, and each one taught you something valuable. Without those moments of struggle, you wouldn't be the person you are today. At this stage of life, you've learned to forgive yourself for past mistakes, knowing that they don't determine your future. Regret may try to rear its head from time to time, but you now recognize it for what it is, a lesson, not a burden. You've lived, you've learned, and you've grown. You've become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of the challenges you've faced. Instead of dwelling on what could have been, you begin to embrace the present moment, focusing on the lessons learned and the wisdom gained. You've learned that there is no point in living in the past because it's gone. The only thing you can control is how you move forward. And that's exactly what you plan to do. Letting go of regret is freeing. It's about choosing to focus on the future with hope and excitement, rather than the past with guilt and sorrow. By forgiving yourself and accepting that you did the best you could with the knowledge you had at the time, you release the past hold over you and make space for the joy of living fully in the now. As we age, change can feel intimidating. We get used to the rhythm of our lives, and the thought of stepping outside of that comfort zone can be unsettling. Perhaps you've spent much of your life avoiding change, sticking to what's familiar and predictable, even if it wasn't necessarily fulfilling. The fear of the unknown often holds us back from pursuing new opportunities or making big decisions. But by the time you reach 60, you've likely come to realize that change is an inevitable part of life, and resisting it only causes unnecessary stress. Change can be daunting, yes, but it can also be incredibly exciting. It opens doors to new possibilities, growth, and experiences you might never have imagined. You might have feared change in the past, thinking it would disrupt your life or lead to failure. But with age comes a deeper understanding that change is often the catalyst for personal transformation. Embracing change means embracing the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to expand your horizons. It's about stepping into the unknown with confidence, knowing that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. At 60, you're no longer afraid of change. You welcome it. Whether it's a new career, a new hobby, a new relationship, or even a new lifestyle, you've learned that change can bring incredible opportunities. You stop seeing it as something to fear and start seeing it as a chance to reinvent yourself, to embrace new passions, and to live a life that feels authentic and exciting.